Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Cade Bonsall. Once again, I'm joined by my friend Andrew Duvall, and this is going to be our review for Scream from 1996. So, Andrew, Scream. Overall, what are your main thoughts on this movie as a whole? Because I think it is one of your favorite horror films, right?
That is correct. This is one of, I'd say probably top three favorite horror movies. I would say Jaws and Reanimator are probably still my top two, but this is definitely up there. And this is just one of the few movies that I genuinely love and have very few, if no bad things to say about it.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I feel the same way. I liked so much about this movie. So, to go through what we like about it, first off, let's talk about the opening, because the opening for this movie is very iconic and very special.
Absolutely. This is, in my opinion, one of the best opening scenes in film history because it could be on its own, basically its own little mini horror movie. It is that it's got a great setup. It's got great acting, hing by Drew Barrymore, and I love the fact that they kind of set it up like, oh, she's going to be in the movie a lot more, and then they kill her off in the first scene. I think that was one of the things that really drew people to Scream was the unexpectedness of that.
Of course.
It's a pretty damn good opening. Again, it's all done through the phone, and then when it turns hard.
Yes, it absolutely does. Yeah, and I agree. I think Drew Barrymore's performance in this opening is very fantastic. I also love just how like really tense this opening scene was because I think with a lot of movies they start off really intense and strong, but then the quality just kind of sometimes drops as the movie progresses. But that wasn't the case with this because the tension was built up in this opening scene and it remained throughout most of the movie, which I think was really great. And one of the best things I love about this opening is I really love the game that she plays with Ghostface over the phone. I love the questions that he asks her, name the killer in Nightmare on Elm Street, name the killer in Friday the 13th and whatnot. And because as a fan of horror films, I too, when I first watched this, was guessing, trying to remember, yeah, or not the killer in Nightmare on Elm Street, the killer in Halloween. And I was also guessing, thinking that. And when he had mentioned name the killer in Friday the 13th, and she said Jason, I also was thinking, which I think a lot of horror fans were thinking as well. No, that's not true. Jason's mother was the killer in the first Friday the 13th. That spoilers for anyone listening. And so
Yeah, spoilers for a movie that came out what 30 something years ago.
I think it was 1980 was when it came out. Yeah.
Oh,
So
so over 40 years ago then.
yeah, but yeah, I was also thinking, no, I think she's wrong, actually. That's not true. I mean, he is the killer of the overall franchise, but yeah, you know what I mean. And yeah, I really love that part of the opening. I love how that sort of stayed with us throughout the rest of the movie. So that was really good. So yeah, the opening is fantastic. The whole movie itself is really great. Also, let's talk about Sydney Prescott as a lead protagonist, as a lead character, because I really do like Sydney Prescott in this movie. I think she's a very good horror protagonist, right?
Yes, because she's not just the damsel in distress. She's not, yes, she's a final girl, but she's not the kind of just lucky, no personality kind of bimbo character that was very popular as the final girl in the 80s. He's in early 90s. She's intelligent. He realizes that, oh, maybe I shouldn't be running upstairs from the serial killer trying to chase me. And the fact that she says that out loud, and again, that's more of just the meta tone of this movie that made it so iconic.
Of course.
And she's able to hold her own against Billy and Stu in the ending. Again, spoilers for a movie that came out almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, I really do like her as a protagonist. What I also really do think is great about her, what I think a lot of people don't really acknowledge too, is just how great Nev Campbell's performance is in this movie.
Yes, absolutely. And correct me if I'm wrong, this was the movie that made her a star, right? I know she'd been acting before this, but I think this was her breakout, right?
I believe so, yeah.
And again, the fact that she's, this is going to sound strange, she's a normal girl. She's human,
Yes.
but she's not a dumbass, this either,
Right.
which is what, again, I think made her such a standout female protagonist in the frankly ocean of female protagonists in horror movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get what you mean. But yeah, but I do really like her as a protagonist again, and I think that she's really up there with characters like Tommy Jarvis from the Friday the 13th franchise and also Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street. Those are some of, I think, the most popular and greatest horror protagonists that we've ever had.
Oh, Laurie Strode.
Yes, Laurie Strode as well. But yeah, in terms of the characters that really stood out, one character that I really liked in this film was Randy. I thought that he was a very great character to have in the film. I really liked his humor. I thought Jamie Kennedy was really great in the film. I also loved just Randy's knowledge of the horror genre and just how useful he was for all the characters and how he came up with the rules. Rule number one, you can never do this, you can never do that, you can never say I'll be right back. And yeah, that was a great part. I also think the humor in this movie is really great.
It is, and that's down to, I think, the fact that it's a very strong script. Number one, and again, none of it's not overly comedic, and I
Right.
think that's building on what you just said about Randy. I think that's why he's such a great character. Is yes, he's the comedic relief, but he's not overbearing. It's not all of the time. He's not. Again, yes, he's funny most of the time, but he's also not on screen for a terribly long amounts of time to the point where he could get overbearing. And again,
Yeah.
just the fact he fits the meta tone of this movie very well. So
Yeah, he does. Another thing that I really want to talk about is, so for the most part, I do think that just Ghostface, the concept of Ghostface as a killer and as a slasher in this film is really great. But can we talk about just how great the pairing of villains are of Billy and Stu, just really quick, because I really do like them as a horror film duo, if you know what I mean.
yes, and it was great in this movie, and then they proceeded to do it for three of the next four movies. They did the two killer twists to, shall we say, mixed success.
Yeah, just so everyone knows, this is something that has kind of bothered Andrew for a very long time.
Okay, again, it was great in this movie. Matthew Lillard and Steve Ulrich, you can tell they're also having a great time acting in this movie,
Yes.
especially Matthew Lillard, who is, I think we could say overacting a little bit, but I think it works since Stu is supposed to be the more unhinged of the two, and I think Billy Loomis is supposed to be this bit more of the brains of the operation.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I really like about the fact that not just the fact that that the Ghostface is actually two people in this movie. What I really like is the reveal that Billy is the killer. Because if you think about it, a lot of people might find it a little too predictable or too obvious that he is the killer. But I think that's part of what made the reveal so great because of the fact that he's so obvious. And what made it more surprising was his motivation when we find out how Sydney's mother had caused the divorce of his two parents and how his mother had abandoned him. That was something that I had never thought about when I first saw the movie. And I thought that that was such a great twist and a great reveal because, again, it was something I didn't see coming at all. And that we had never, maybe I could be wrong, but it didn't feel like something they had really mentioned that much. So that's what made it more surprising. And yeah, I think it's definitely a good part of the reveal in that he's the killer.
I feel like, now that you mentioned that, I feel like they may have mentioned it with some of the Cotton Weary stuff when talking about Sydney's mom, but I don't think they emphasized it, which I think was the right call.
Right.
And then again, they have the two of them do a great job, Steve Ulrich and Matthew Lillard, but I think Matthew Lillard is the more entertaining of the two just because of how freaking insane he turns. Because
Yeah.
yeah, he's goofy throughout the majority of the movie, but he just goes off the wall in the climax.
Yes, he does. And I think that it really shows us how great an actor Matthew Lillard really is. I don't think he gets enough credit for the work that he's done, to be honest. And he's an actor that I've always really enjoyed watching on the screen. I think he's really great.
I agree. He was one of the few things I liked about 13 Ghosts, which is we'll save that discussion for another review.
No, yeah, I get it. I get it. But yeah, there was a lot that I really liked. One thing I did really enjoy about this movie was it had supporting characters or side characters that I actually did care about because I think in a lot of slasher films they have side characters, maybe not just side characters, but just a lot of characters in general who you're kind of waiting to see die. And that wasn't really because they're just annoying or unlikable or they're just useless to the plot. But this movie pretty much had a lot of characters that I was kind of hoping would survive. I really liked Dewey, I liked Gale, I liked Tatum, I liked Randy again, and I didn't want to see them die, and obviously, some of them do. And that was kind of yeah, disappointing, but it was kind of like one of those ones where, ah, man, I kind of wanted him to survive, or I wanted her to survive. But yeah, this movie handled that really well, and I think that really makes it stand out against other slasher films, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I actually want to mention that I don't think a lot of people talk about is there are some awesome kills in this movie.
Yes, there are.
Like like obviously the first scene of the movie is iconic and it's a great opening scene. The kill itself is a little tame, in all honesty. But then towards the end of the movie, you get some really good kills. Like you get Tatum in the garage door, which is one of my favorite horror movie kills of all time. You get Stu getting crushed by the TV screen, which is just such a 90s thing that wouldn't be happening nowadays with our flat screens.
Right.
And then, yeah, Billy's kill is a gun kill, but the fact that Randy's talking about this is the part where the killer pops up for one more scare, and then it actually happens. And then is it Gail or Sydney shoots him in the head again?
Sydney.
Sydney, and then shoot just squeezes the trigger and finally puts him down. I think it's not a gory kill, it's not a super creative kill, but it's a super well staged and comedically timed kill.
Yes, it is. But yeah, those are a lot of the great things about the movie. Now, we've talked about what we really like. I think now we should maybe talk about a couple things that we maybe don't really like about this movie. Why don't you start?
Uh well, like I said at the very beginning, I don't have a whole lot of bad things to say about this movie because I absolutely love it. But one thing I've just thought was a little maybe too on the nose was the scene where the is it assistant principal or principal of the school
I think it was the principal.
sticks his head into the hallway and it's like, "Hey, Fred." There's the janitor with the fedora and the striped jacket. I think that one was maybe a little too on the nose there, Wes Craven.
Well, in all honesty, I think that this film does a really great job paying homage to previous horror films, especially the classics. And I get what you're saying, but I did kind of enjoy it. I thought it was a nice touch.
Again, it was a nice touch. I just think it was maybe a little too on the nose. I would have done maybe call him Fred and have him in a fedora and maybe don't have the striped sweater to make it too obvious.
No, yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about this movie. Maybe just a couple of minor things like sometimes I questioned how Billy and Stu could change in and out of the costume so quick sometimes. But that happens in a lot of movies. I think one big question I have is how there's a part in the movie where Sydney and Tatum are going through town and they eventually go to get groceries, and you can see Ghostface in the background. I think in a reflection, you can see him following them. I don't know if it's Billy or Stu. I think it's probably Billy, but where they're following Sydney and Tatum around. And all I could think was watching that was, okay, you're out in broad daylight following Sydney around in the Ghostface costume. I mean, isn't that really easy? Isn't that kind of reckless? Wouldn't it be easy for you guys to get noticed or anything like that? If you know what I mean?
Yeah, that maybe wasn't the best his course of action. Maybe have it be somebody's following them, maybe just in the robe but not the mask.
Right.
Like you can show like an angle of them in the car, like changing the gear shifter or something, and you can clearly tell it's Ghostface because they're in the black robe, but you can't see the face.
Right.
Like have the mask sitting on the seat or something.
Yeah, that would have been a nice touch. But yeah, no, other than that, I don't really have a lot of bad things to say. I think it's a great horror film. I think it's just great film overall. And it's definitely a classic. And it's obviously created a very big reputation, which it rightfully has. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. I really do enjoy this movie. It's that maybe not top three horror films for me, but definitely among the greatest, in my opinion. Overall, what would you give Scream for a rating on a score of 1 to 10?
Ooh. Honestly, I would give it a solid 9, if not like a 9.25, because it is, for the most part, a very well made movie on both sides of the camera. Yeah, there is a couple of hokey bits, but that is by no means takes away from how good of a movie it really is.
No, I totally agree. I'd probably give it a probably 8, 8.5, because while it is fantastic, I don't know if I don't know if I put it up there with my top three, but still, no, really great film overall. And yeah, probably 8.5 for me. So yeah, that's all I have to say. You?
Yeah, basically, I don't have really anything else to say about it. This is just a very well done movie, and I don't think they expected it to become the cultural phenomenon that it is.
Probably not, no. Yeah, but yeah, great movie. And I'm glad we did this review. And yeah, thanks so much, guys, for listening. And we have more to come. Thank you so much again. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll see you guys later. Thanks.